Hey everyone, again, it's John Bachman and Dan Bachman again, and we're here to talk more and say more things. And this is our second episode, and today we're going to talk about, well, it's kind of my experience that I'm going through, and I call it being death adjacent, which just means that I've had, for those of you who don't know, I've had a diagnosis for about 2 years of stage 4 colon cancer, spread to my liver and lungs. And I went through a year of chemo and radiation, everything, tumors were shrinking, and I was feeling better. And then the year after that, which would be last year, 2022, I had about 6 surgeries in about a year, which was interesting. And again, you know, some of them were kind of tough to recover from. But when I did, we did another round of scans, and it turns out all this stuff kind of grew back. So I've got spots in my liver, both lungs, and recently we just discovered pancreas. So my last visit with my oncologist, which was just last week, I asked her, hey, what's my situation here? What kind of lifespan am I looking at statistic-wise? And she said, she paused. And she said that was the worst part of her job, was having to tell people these things. But she said, you have about 2 to 6 months left. So right now, we are September 28th. Is that right? 2023?
29th.
September 29th, 2023. So we got tomorrow's the last day of September. And my birthday is November 18th. So really, my near-term goal is just making it to my birthday and still feeling pretty good. And I feel amazing right now, which is part of the bizarreness of this whole experience. But so having gone through this process and getting some early warning that this is a possibility has been an experience that I could have never imagined what it would be like. And I just wanted to, John and I are just going to kind of discuss that. I'll share some, just my takeaways, things I've noticed, changes in thinking and how I feel in general, both physically, emotionally, all those things, all those mentally, all those things that you never know. I mean, I would have never, 10 years ago, I know people get cancer, obviously. It's far too common, but I would have never been able to guess what the experience of living with it is like. So I just wanted to share that just in case. Well, this is for friends and loved ones, but this is also for if anyone can get any benefit from it who might be going through something similar themselves or have a loved one who is. If it helps in any way, good. That's the intention. But John and I are just going to kind of have a conversation about it. And John he's a PA in the Army.
Yep.
He's an aviator. He's flown Blackhawks for the Army before.
Yep.
He also has a background in fetal pain and is a pro-life, I would say, active. I don't know. Would you call yourself an activist?
Sure. Why not?
Advocate?
I'm an advocate.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I have put in the work to be an advocate, but yeah, some sort of, like, I do feel strongly about it. But I have a day job, and that consumes most of my time. I just got back from Poland, deployed for most of a year, and not a lot of fetal pain research went on during that time. But nobody died on my end, so I consider that a success.
Yes.
But yeah, that's my background. I'm a military PA based in Tennessee.
And John and his lovely daughters, who are quietly sitting off camera here, they're just lovely. Emily and Charlotte they're here visiting us, road tripped in from Tennessee,
Yep.
Tennessee, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I'm getting to spend some time with them, which is wonderful. Well, I'll just dive in a little bit. I'm going to give a little brief history on kind of how all this started. Back in 2020, during the pandemic, or right around that time that started, we locked down. I'm a rehab guy, so I do pre- and post-surgical rehab for spine and extremities. And we're in my office right now, and I was seeing patients, and then we hit the big lockdown phase where everyone shut their doors for about 3 months. And and during that time, I was very active. I was doing lots of hiking in the hills, figuring out how to work out without a gym, and kind of honestly enjoying my time, my free time. I had the ability to do that financially, which is not everyone did. I'm amazed that as many people came through that time as they did without just being wiped out.
I thought it was going to be utter disaster, like complete disassembly of civilization. I really thought it was not going to. I thought there's no way. And 2 weeks was obviously not correct. 2 weeks to stop the spread. And I didn't know when it would end, because if it's a pandemic, these things don't stop in 2 weeks. But anyway, so all that to say, your insurance lapsed during that time. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. So that to almost a comedy of errors. That was probably the first error. Is every year, of course, here in the U.S., we have to re-up our insurance plan, and there's a window. They give you a time window during which you can apply for and initiate next year's health plan. And I missed that window in late 2019. I think it's November, December, or something like that. I missed that window. And then during 2020, I was like, yeah, I've got a pandemic going on, so I hope I don't get sick and then need health insurance for that, which I did not during that time. But I did not have insurance during that time. And also, that was my 50th. Oh, let's see here. I'm having trouble with math. I'm 54 now.
51. You were 51.
I was 51.
Right? Yeah.
I was supposed to get my colonoscopy at 50.
Yeah.
That's the standard first screening.
And now it's like 45.
Now it's 45. Yep. The week
For
after.
people like you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Literally the week after I got my colonoscopy, and they're like, "Oh, there's a big thing in there." They said, "Oh yeah, we're bumping it from 50 down to 45 because we're seeing tons of younger people, 30s, 20s, getting colon cancer."
Same with breast cancer. I don't know what's going on with causation, but we're seeing younger and younger people with colon cancer and breast cancer. I have a patient who had breast cancer at age 30. And, I used to kind of blow off the breast exam during a woman exam. I'd be like, well, unless you have these markers, unless you have a history, I just say, it's up to you. And most women would be like, yeah, no big deal. I don't need a breast exam. Now, I'm not so sure, now that I've been seeing more breast cancer and I've been seeing cases of inflammatory bowel disease and colon cancer a lot more than I used to. So folks like you who are getting it early, surprisingly, shockingly early, are why USPSTF decreased the initial age of first test down to 45.
And you got your
You bet I
first
did.
colonoscopy.
Yeah, once we found out about you, because I was hoping you had inflammatory bowel disease, and it turned out nothing we did really matched up with it. We tried like before you could get in to see a doc, we were hoping to get you a little bit of trial treatment on some ideas that I had that didn't work. And so when we found out you had colon cancer, you bet I scheduled my own colonoscopy.
And you had, 7 polyps that they removed?
Oh, no. I don't think it was anything near that. Just a few, and they were all benign.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they were fine.
So, and of course, for those of you who haven't had a colonoscopy, it's no big deal. The idea freaks people out. Freaked me out. It's no big deal. You do a little prep the night before. You go to sleep for about 20 minutes, and you wake up, and you feel great.
Yeah.
Feel fantastic. So there's no weirdness to it other than just the thought of it. But during 2020, so I would say probably around summer 2020, July maybe, is when I first started getting my first symptoms. And it was just a little mild stomach upset. I'd returned to work. A little constipation, a few more bathroom trips, things aren't coming as easily. And gradually over time, so I was like, I'll drink more water, eat more fiber. I eat really well anyway. As you know, we were raised vegetarian, and you've been lifelong vegetarian as well.
More or less, yeah.
Mostly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we've both always, John and I have both always been very active and fit and health conscious. We're both in healthcare fields. And so it wasn't the first thing that jumped to my mind that, this is, some existential risk here, that something horrible is happening and you need to act right away. So I was telling myself, I'll just wait till next year and sign up for insurance. Well, during that waiting period, things just got worse and worse. So gradually, constipation was more. I started to get some aching down there.
You had bloating as well, as I recall.
I had
and I was like,
bloating.
okay, well, Dan, let's try you on a low FODMAP diet. And you're like, well, that seems to be working. And I was like, problem solved. That sounds great. But it didn't. It didn't work ultimately, obviously.
Yes, and for those listening, a low FODMAP is an acronym
For fiber, something.
some kind of fiber that can ferment if you get too much, and it bloats your belly. So if you have a lot of bloating after a meal, lots of gas, discomfort, I had itching, my skin was itchy. It can last for hours. I've had this issue before, and so John brought it up and was like, hey, that worked last time. I'll try this low FODMAP diet. And usually last time it took me 2 or 3 days, and I was brilliant. This time, no difference. So I tried a bunch of different diets. I tried some, cleanses, from juice cleanses, just trying to pack myself with nutrients, hopefully let my gut reset or start moving things along nicely and feeling better. Started getting this ache down there, kind of underneath.
The undercarriage.
The undercarriage was aching, yes.
Yeah.
Undercarriage didn't feel good. Felt like I was sitting on a golf ball. And so I started thinking prostatitis or some kind of infection, perhaps. And I'm trying to think of the order. I want to go in too much detail here, but I tried. The point is, during 2020, I tried a bunch of things. Had a virtual meeting with a doc by phone, and she said, "Get a colonoscopy right away." To her credit.
Well,
Now-
we knew that was we knew that's what you needed.
Sure.
The definitive
We knew
assessment.
it was on a list of things that needed to be checked out.
Yeah, no matter what you had, even if you had inflammatory bowel disease, you needed a colonoscopy for best results. You at least needed some labs, some basic labs, and a colonoscopy.
And now that I think of it, I even had a ton of labs. I even had stool labs. They said they found no blood in there. I don't know how.
Well, it's not 100% that they're going to find blood on just one trial. Usually you need several trials for best results. But, yeah, especially in the incipient stages of colon cancer, you might not find anything on a stool sample.
Well, that's what happened with me. Even though I was having blood, that was kind of another development. As soon as I saw blood and night pain, I was like, okay, these are two markers. They're not a guarantee you have cancer, but these are some of the hallmarks of many kinds of, well, especially for a GI cancer. You've got blood and stool, and you have pain at night. And I had both. So now this had started progressing more rapidly through 2020, and by the end I was just in pure misery 24/7. It's the only way I can describe it. It was just misery. I kept working, and I think it helped because it gave me something to direct my attention to. I love my work, and also pay the bills. There are practical things that have to be taken care of, whether you're sick or not. So I worked through that whole time, and then at some point, I had pretty much resigned myself. By the time I got my colonoscopy, which was like early 2021, I knew what it was. In fact, my first colonoscopy, my prep failed, meaning they tell you to drink a bunch of stuff. It's supposed to clean you out, empty you. I drank all the crazy stuff. I was just a basketball. None of it came out. So they need you clean so they can see things for the camera. So I went in, I did my best. I even started, I was extra careful with what I ate and everything. Went in, showed up for my colonoscopy. They said, yeah, you're not ready. So I had to reschedule. So I delayed it again. So this time I started my fasting 2 days before, my water fast. So I had not eaten for 2 days. Still wasn't completely empty. And of course, the reason we know now is that the tumor was in my rectum, so it closed down that pipe so nothing could get out. So that's why I had the bloating, because I could eat, drink, but nothing would get out, and that also causes pain. And then it stretches and strains things, I guess, which can cause the bleeding, and then the tumor itself is probably bleeding itself. So by the time I woke up from my colonoscopy, the doc who did it came over to me as I was laying in bed, and I could see it on her face. She's like, yeah, you have a tumor in there. It looks like it's and she didn't want to say it. She said, we've got a mass in there, and it's going to need to be looked at some more. And I said, what do you think it is? She said, it's colon cancer. So she was pretty certain right away. I wasn't even floored, man.
You were expecting it by now.
I was expecting it by then.
You were in agony 24/7.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it. It's not because of a bad diet.
Yeah.
It's not because you're not taking the right supplements.
Yep. And so, still having it formalized like that, your mind just starts running, you know, and you start thinking about, man, I'm young, I feel young, I've been healthy my whole life. My only thing, and this is what I suspect was the underlying contributor, at least the biggest one, or a big one, because we tested me genetically. No genetic predisposition to this kind of cancer or any cancer. But I drank a lot of alcohol. I would drink a bottle of wine or more a night.
That is a big risk factor for colon cancer. For lots of cancer, but colon cancer for sure.
And then I think it was you that told me it shocks your gut. I mean, I would agree, meaning it just, your gut doesn't work as well. And I mean, we've all seen that when we go out drinking, and then the next day we have diarrhea or something like that, or we don't feel good for sure. And in mine, I rationalized my drinking, and I rationalized away because I was performing well at my job. I wasn't getting DUIs. Mm-hmm. It didn't technically interfere with my life. You know, obviously it did in other ways, but it wasn't I found reasons to not think it was a problem.
Cancer is old Dan's problem, not young Dan's problem.
Yes. So I get the news, and then, of course, it starts the whole cascade of appointments and testing and so on. So I feel very fortunate to have gotten drawn out of a hat, basically, a fantastic oncologist. Sylvia Jaramillo is her name. She's wonderful. She's so sensitive and she's wicked smart, but she's also very tender and straightforward with me. I told her from the beginning, I said, I don't sugarcoat anything for me. So she said, let's start with chemo. We did the strongest regimen because they have different cocktails for chemo. And if I was frail and old, let's say, older, I might not handle the stronger chemo well or even at all, because it's rough. I mean, it's poison that you inject and hoping it's going to kill the tumor before it kills you.
It kills the fast-growing things first,
yeah,
and the slower-growing things, namely you, just suffer.
Yes. So I did 12 rounds of 6 months of IV chemo. Wore a little fanny pack with chemo. I've got a port right here. This is what they stick it in. This goes into, I think, inferior vena cava, something like that.
Yeah.
So it just gives them an easy access point. And they use a big artery because if they put it in your vein, the stuff is so caustic, it just blows up veins. So they put it to a big bore artery, so it's kind of diluted and doesn't hopefully hit you as hard.
The vena cava would be a vein, but never mind that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's big. It's big no matter what.
And I'm just trying to remember if that's where it actually goes.
Yeah. I think it's one of the either superior or inferior. I don't really know which one they put in.
It's some big bore vessel. And so I did that. And I feel like I handled it surprisingly well to me. I didn't lose my hair. I was expecting to. I said, am I going to lose my hair? I was like prepared mentally. They said, yeah, you probably won't. I said, breast cancer, they use a different cocktail. Said your hair will fall out in a week. So I had to keep my hair. And all through chemo, we do periodic scans. And it's always chest, abdomen, pelvis, CT. And they'll track them, see, are they getting bigger? Are they getting smaller? And they were getting smaller. I mean, I think I started with 6 or 7 tumors in my liver. I was down to 5, I think, by the time I had my liver surgery. They're disappearing completely. Some of There were 3 spots in my lung that were like, they're very small. There's like, 3, 4, 5 millimeters. She called them micrometastases, micromets. She's like, we're not even sure those are tumors. They're not growing as time goes by. They could just be, you hit a bong too hard when we were young and you have a little scar tissue there. We don't know. And then, so that took up, and then I did, 12 rounds IV chemo and then 30 rounds of chemo radiation. So I'd do oral chemo and then get radiation every day for 30 days. So they'd aim it down here at the primary tumor.
How long does that last per session?
Very, very quick.
Like 20 minutes, 30 minutes? I mean, from start to finish?
10, 15.
Yeah, okay.
So they have a system there. They have it really well automated. You walk in, and by the way, they put permanent marks on me.
Yeah, to aim?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to, because it'll scar you down.
Yeah, and it has.
Mm-hmm.
But so that they know, as long as we have these 2 little X's on me, we just aim our gun at that, and we know we're going to be hitting the tumor. And I counted, I think it was like, the total radiation was about 15 seconds. Then I hop up and go, never really felt anything. They said you might feel like the skin is sunburned there.
Yeah.
Never felt anything. Now all my hair fell off on my lower belly. So it's baby smooth. It still hasn't grown back. That's over a year ago. So then the chemo and radiation first. The idea is shrink everything as small as it can get. Then we do surgery to cut out what's left. And so that would come the next year, which would be 2021.
And you started feeling better during the chemo. You started feeling tons better during the chemo and during the radiation.
Yes. Thanks for reminding me. So they told me my tumor in my distal colon had left me with an opening. I mean, normally, we've all seen how big a stool is. So we know that it has to be at least that big. But my opening was smaller than a pencil diameter. And they showed me on screen. It was like, see that little black dot? That's the opening you have. So no wonder anything couldn't get out. No wonder bowel movements are painful, right? Well, within the first week of chemo, it was shrinking that tumor, which opened the pipe up. And so my bowel movements immediately started getting better. The night pain started to fade away because I used to have to lay on a hot pad every night. That's the only relief I could get. So, all arrows were pointing at, yes, this green is go. Looks like we're doing the right stuff. Then before surgery, they want to give you some recovery. So I think I had about 6 months between my last chemo radiation and my first surgery, just to let your body kind of get rid of all that stuff because it takes a while. It lingers. And then we first did my liver surgery. And they took a third of my liver. I don't want to talk all about this. I want to talk more. Yeah. So we'll speed this up a little bit.
Kind of like about what it meant to you to be death adjacent.
Yes. So took a third of my liver, did well with that. And it grew back. The liver grew back in 2 weeks, which is crazy. Then we, I had a liver biopsy. That was one surgery. I had the port installed. That was another surgery. Ended up having a lung biopsy. That's another surgery. And then a colon resection where they took out the tumor here and gave me an ostomy bag to divert the food while this one healed. And that one didn't go well. But we'll just leave it at that. And then a final surgery to have the ostomy taken off and closed up. So that all finished up about 1 year ago. And I was in a bad way. I was in a wheelchair. Mom was pushing me around in a wheelchair for a while. I'd lost 51 pounds in the hospital, so I weighed 129. I went into the hospital for surgery at 180, came out at 129.
6'1", 129 pounds. For reference, I'm like just under 6, and I weigh 195.
Yeah.
And you weigh like 175 now?
I'm about 175 now, yeah. So then, of course, we've been doing periodic scans to see if it comes back. Well, it did. And this last blood work and scan showed the tumor blood work jumped 10x in the last 4 months. Now I got another CT and it spread. So the liver tumor didn't grow, interestingly. The 4 lung ones did. And then there's a new one in the head of the pancreas. And the risk there, she said, my onco said, that's the one that'll get you. and it could happen fast. She said, that's the 2 months. She said, if you don't get any treatment, you've got about 2 months. If you do get this experimental immunotherapy trial, then you might get 6 months, if the trial works. So this is more of a shock to me because
doesn't feel that way.
I feel great.
There's literally no change from before that appointment to after that appointment, except this new bit of knowledge, which seems significant somehow.
Yeah. And so this is kind of the whole purpose of us talking about this is the effect it has on your thinking. And I really am grateful that I knew this was a possibility 2 years ago, as opposed to just hearing it out of the blue. I felt fine. I go in for a routine checkup, and they're like, "Oh, you're going to die in 2 to 6 months." That would be a much bigger shock to me, I think. So I really feel blessed to have known this was a possibility as soon as I did 2 years ago, because it lets you work through things in your head, and it lets you kind of make peace with things. It lets you enjoy I've gotten to really enjoy 2.5 years at this point more richly, knowing that this was a possibility. It just makes everything more intense. Someone told me, they said, it sounds like life is more saturated to you, and that is exactly the right word. Every little thing, things we take for granted, I'm sitting here in a chair and I'm comfortable.
That's a big deal.
It's a huge deal, especially after my experience in the hospital, which we didn't really talk about, but it's
something I take for granted. For example, I'm sitting here, comfortable, and
so
what? So what?
Yeah.
This is my normal state. It's one of those things that until you know someone or have had similar experience to what you've had, sitting in a chair is the most prosaic, boring gratitude you could possibly have.
No, I never included that on my list of things I was thankful for every day, but I am now, and it's everything. You can see there's some beautiful lantana flowers growing out there. There's a breeze.
It's noticing those.
Blue, like the Simpsons sky, like in the Simpsons. It's
puffy
that
clouds.
Perfect little puffy clouds, blue sky. The birds singing. All these little things they feel just heavy with importance, and for that reason, this has been. I talked in another video about this is the cool thing about cancer. It's that it almost like pulls away a curtain and lets you appreciate all the wonderful things that we get to experience and just take for granted. And I'm talking about myself.
Yeah, sure.
I was always so unsettled, unsatisfied. Felt like I wasn't fully realized as a person. Felt like just no matter how successful I've been or how much accolades or adventures I've gotten to go on or successes I've had, whatever it is, there was always this undercurrent that was just not quite settled and not satisfied. I feel like that's something a lot of us have and don't talk about.
Oh yeah,
I'm just guessing.
Oh yeah, was it Emerson? Most men, something like, I paraphrase, most men lead lives of quiet desperation.
Yes. And it's quiet, especially for men, I think. But none of us want to be complainers.
We're supposed to be stoic, especially as men, right?
Yes.
Do not show emotion. That's contemptible.
Rub some dirt on it.
Yeah.
Our coach said.
That's what the Army says.
I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And there's some truth to that. There's some legitimacy to that, for sure.
Well, you can take anything too far. You know, you can be a whiner, or you can be too stoic and rigid and inflexible. You can go way too far either direction.
It's like being angry. Anybody could be angry, but to be angry for the right reason, the right time, in the right way,
to the right degree,
about the right thing. That is unusual.
Yes.
Anybody can be angry, but to have it finely tuned, to have it so calibrated, to have such a powerful emotion so finely calibrated is beyond what most people ever experience.
And I agree. And I mean, I count myself in that group too.
Right here.
So all of this is obviously new experience, unplanned adventure. And I always felt like, we know cancer, we know all these illnesses. We just had a pandemic. We know all these things exist. We know people die. And yet it always feels like it's not going to be me.
Mm-hmm.
I always think about that herd of zebras, big herd of zebras, and they're being stalked by a lion. Most of the zebras aren't very afraid. They know, he's going to pick off a straggler.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I have always felt about the serious illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, but I'm not too worried myself just because I'm young and healthy and, doing things right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty bulletproof. And of course, we have a lifetime of evidence supporting that. Mm-hmm. I haven't had any serious illnesses, therefore I never will.
The past is the best predictor of the future.
Yes.
Until you die, in which case that's kind of unprecedented for most people.
Yes. So what this has done, it's been a slow transformation. First thing I'll say, we've all heard about that. Your life passes in front of your eyes right before you die. I've heard that since read it in books when I was little. And for me, it's been like life passes, my historical life passes slowly in front of my eyes. It's not like bing, 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 there's your life in 10 seconds. All these childhood memories have been popping up, and all these, and I think stopping drinking probably helped that a lot, honestly.
Stopping drinking, it's weird, isn't it? Drinking is a mood-altering, but also a mind-altering activity.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why people do it, frankly.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said for that. You start to feel, so I'm familiar with this whole process from my own perspective, start to feel a lot of feelings you didn't know were there.
Yes.
That drinking suppresses, covers, papers over.
Maybe that's why we
But
drink.
of course.
Yeah.
But of course.
Yeah.
That is precisely it. We enhance some feelings, we loosen others, and we suppress the undesirable ones. And I think it's, this is a parallel with me in the pro-life realm as I think about it, but the unwanted is sometimes the ones we really need.
Yes. Well, they're the things we don't like thinking about.
Yes.
I mean, for me anyway, I'm done. God, the list of things I regret, the stupid things I've done, the ways I've hurt people, that list goes to the moon, man.
Sure.
I mean, it is a long list of things that I am not proud to think about.
Have you written any of these down?
No.
You should.
I should indeed.
You should. I think it would be not only clarifying for you,
yeah,
but also potentially healing for you. And then you can also kind of, we're talking about putting your affairs in order. Ideally, this is what we do during life.
Sure. Yeah.
Ideally, we keep our house clean throughout our lives, not just at the very end before we kick the bucket.
Yeah.
But there's something to be
not
said.
Just clean the house when company comes over.
Right. I mean, I'd never do that. But I mean, but I guess that's the point. There's a freedom of mind that comes, I think, and I'm preaching to myself here. Freedom of mind that comes when everything's in order and someone can drop in at any time.
Yes.
We can feel free to share whatever it is we have because we know what we have.
And they could dig around in your back closet and it's everything's in order.
Everything's in order, and you know what it is and what it isn't. And so there's something to be said from my perspective about having taken an inventory of yourself, myself, and knowing who you are and who you aren't, what's mine, what's not mine, and what I can share, what I can afford to give, what I can't afford to give, what I must keep for myself and my family. These kinds of questions are only answerable after a pretty thorough inventory. And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And that is very much part and parcel of the 12. That's kind of the capstone, I would say, of the 12-step
steps, yeah.
approach. Yeah, which of course starts. It's 12 steps, not just that one. But I would say I can't remember if that's somewhere in the middle of them, but an inventory is a very important part.
I think cancer kind of forces that on you.
Yeah. I mean, if you're wise,
Yeah.
some people probably never realize that's what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of chaos surrounding a cancer
Sure.
diagnosis.
Yeah, and I also want to acknowledge that I realize that I'm in a much more capable spot going through this situation than maybe most people are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I didn't have if someone doesn't have health insurance, doesn't have a support system around them, I can't imagine. Doesn't have the ability to take time off of work. I mean, that's tons of people. And I have been able to. And so that has made my, awful experience much more livable. And yet many or maybe even most people do not have that opportunity. So I feel like the fact that I've been able to have some time to myself to think about this, to work through these things, has made that more possible. And you're right, there's a bunch of chaos around. You've got all the doctors' tests, you've got all the anxiety, you've got the test anxiety. You never get the result that day. It's always a couple days later.
Yeah. One could be forgiven for not knowing the next step to take.
Yeah, and that's a great point too. Mm-hmm. So that's what you're confronted with. You got the medical model, and they'll always. And I trust my oncologist. And my entire team. I have a colon surgeon, a liver surgeon, a respiratory person, an oncologist, an oncological nutritionist. I mean, I have all these people, and I think they're all wonderful. But science is limited, and humans are limited in their ability. And we all know we haven't figured cancer out. So,
we've even stopped declaring war on cancer. I've noticed. We used to be, when we were younger, there was a war on cancer. There was like, hey, it's not that we've stopped looking for cures, but we've started looking for ways to manage it now. And we've kind of almost accepted it as a fact. And now what are we going to do about it?
Right.
It's really interesting.
And yet, there's a subset of people who get these terminal diagnoses, and they get sent home and said, well, you got a couple of months. This is the time to say your goodbyes and put your affairs in order. And then they get better, and no one knows why.
Yep.
So I, of course, am extremely interested in what those people are doing. In fact, I read a book called Radical Remission, which I highly recommend to anyone who's going through this, even a loved one, because it's just a series of stories of people who had that experience. 10 years ago, they were sent home or put in hospice, and they beat it, and everyone's trying to figure out why. So this author found that there are 9 things that they all had in common. And only 2 of those things are physical things, diet or supplements, exercise. All the rest are up here. They're all mental, emotional. It's like giving love, receiving love, asking forgiveness, or making amends, feeling your feelings.
I would say you can't even feel your feelings until you start to take an inventory of yourself
because the little we encapsulate those things and stuff them away.
Yeah, like tuberculosis has a walled off sort of a bleb of bacteria inside. It's walled off from any kind of intrusion.
Yes, and that's how it feels with all the things that I've regretted and my things I've fallen short on or I'm ashamed of. All those things, we don't like to, it's not fun to think about them, so we don't. We're like, okay, put that thing away, and then let's pretend it didn't exist. But part of the thing in this book is looking at all those dark, dusty corners and examining all the things in the light of day, which is so liberating, because once you look at the scary thing and you turn it around and say, oh yeah, yes, I did this thing, I wish I hadn't. What can I do about it now? Can I apologize to someone? If so, great, do it. You can get rid of all that. It doesn't have to be carried around with you in your backpack all the time, everywhere you go. And so that's part of the blessing that I've seen is this, partly with the help of this book, said, feel all your feelings. And that has been a magical thing for me. Because on the one hand, you hear people say, oh, you got to keep a positive attitude. Your mind is gonna.
What does that even
overcome this
mean?
thing. Yeah.
What does that even mean? That's like, I think it's well intentioned,
Yes.
but frankly, it can be stifling,
Yes. And unattainable. Because we can't control our thoughts that well. So bad thoughts are going to come in. And then if you feel, oh no, I'm thinking,
do more
I'm
affirmations.
afraid I'm going to die. Yeah. Then that's going to make me die faster. And then that makes me even more anxious. So, but this was liberating to me was the way I try to live now is feel all your feelings. If there's me, and the way that worked for me, because I've always felt like I know I should have more. Like we lost our youngest brother.
Yes, we did.
20 years ago or something.
Yeah,
I never
right,
really grieved that much for him. I knew and I know that that's not natural.
We probably didn't feel like you had the tools to do so, or maybe that's where the alcohol came in. I don't know in your case.
It was well before that.
Yeah.
It was like 30 years, but yes, the alcohol is
that's its role,
suppressing all that stuff, numbing you basically.
It's a fairly flexible implement, isn't it?
It is. But what I figured out is don't try to keep bad feelings out. They're going to come in. Welcome them in. Experience them completely.
Where do you get the strength to do that?
Desperation, maybe. It just makes you willing to try anything, John. Especially in the beginning, everything's my chemo looks like it's working. The surgeries are working. I'm cutting this thing out. I'm beating cancer. Well, then it comes back and it just knocks you down.
That just feeds your old self-impression. Like, haha, I really am one of the 1%.
Yeah. This is easy. this is gonna be. I'm gonna tell jokes about this.
Yeah.
And I still may in the future, right?
Of course,
so
there's
we don't
some
know.
residual. Yeah.
It's just the tide seems to be turning the wrong direction here. But when that makes you get real honest with yourself real quick, I at least in my experience, and so I knew I wanted to feel emotion more deeply. I wanted to feel empathy. For others more deeply. And so I knew music is very powerful to me. And it makes me cry, not out of sadness, but out of beauty. So I found my playlist with all the songs, and I just listened to it. And I cried, wept like a baby.
Sarah McLachlan.
And
was it on there?
Probably.
I was just thinking about the puppy commercial.
Oh, yes.
But I'm being a little bit facetious, but that's, I think, a primary role of music is to give us access to what is already inside of us.
Yes. It expresses emotions that don't have words. And that seemed to unlock everything for me. And so I kind of had my heart on my sleeve, so to speak, very quickly. Once I started just saying, okay, I'm going to let some of this in, invite it in, this emotion, like let myself feel things. Oh, boy, did I ever start feeling everything. All the emotions. Happiness. I would laugh out loud every day. I never used to do that. I never used to laugh out by myself. And sometimes just thinking of something, I'd be laughing in the car. And then crying at things. And the things I became interested in changed so much. I mean, like I wanted to get in touch, stay in touch with you and other loved ones, which I've been bad about for most of my life. Always felt bad about that. So now I'm in touch with friends and family much more. And
well, you can't just numb one feeling, right?
Yeah.
You can't just numb one feeling. If you're committed to numbing feelings, some others are collateral damage.
The anesthetic works on everything.
Yeah, so the loneliness that propels us into connection also gets numbed. That's a tough feeling, not just like maybe feelings of regret or sadness, but also loneliness, and some also the good, happy feelings get numbed as well. And so it all kind of like, the circle kind of tends to grow over time the more we numb, I would say. And so these are all collateral damage, and it's like almost a cancer itself. The more we try to numb our feelings, the less access we have of our feelings, and they do
Yeah.
pop up. They manifest in other ways, and then we then have to numb those other ways.
To which we then, overreact or react inappropriately to,
Yep.
just because we're not so unfamiliar with dealing with feelings, and we, act out or do whatever.
We don't know what to do with people who are having feelings
Yep.
outside of us either.
Yep.
We're completely unprepared for that. We feel uncomfortable around them. We have to not be friends with them. So that hurts our friendships as well. The less access we have to ourselves and our own feelings, the less connection we have with others. And
It takes away all of our tools.
Yep.
We're throwing the tools away.
Oh, yeah.
The emotional tools to deal with life and things like this, we're throwing them away by medicating, or I was, with alcohol.
Yeah. So I think we all do it in our own particular way.
Sure.
That's my own opinion.
Everyone has our thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that has been life. I mean, I also try to reduce stress. That's one of the things. So I would always get mad when I listen to the news because it's insane. And I'm
Yep.
talking about yelling at the
Yep.
radio when I'm driving.
Yep.
So I switched to classical music. I don't listen to news anymore.
How's that working for you?
Amazing.
Right? And they can't trigger they, right? It's always they.
Yes.
They can't trigger you
Yes.
anymore.
Yes.
You are in more control of your emotions
Yes.
now than you were before.
Yes. And that's a good point, because it felt like I wasn't in control of my emotions. First of all, I didn't feel what I wanted to feel, and then I would feel way too much of something that I wished I hadn't.
Mm-hmm.
So
You feel kind of gross after that?
Yeah.
Like I stopped listening to the news. I used to love listening to the news. It used to not be quite so political, in fairness. But I stopped that years ago for that same reason.
Yeah, I recommend to anyone,
Mm-hmm.
because we can't change that stuff, not personally.
I take it in smaller doses.
Yeah,
I don't take it usually. I usually just skim the news.
yeah,
That's all I want.
yeah, and I think that's it. I think we're just way too media in general, social media or mass media. I mean, it's all outrage journalism now. It's everything's designed to elicit outrage because that gets more clicks and that gets more. So no wonder we're getting fed all this stuff, because
Anxiety and depression are incredibly high now,
Yes.
and particularly since 2020.
oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's like probably I don't know if I've told you this in the past, but my patients, I figure at least a third of them have anxiety, and maybe another, maybe more than around that same number have depression. Of course, a lot of that's coexisting, like overlapping, but at least a third, and maybe, depending on the week, maybe half.
Wow.
And frankly, they come in for not anxiety or depression, but for somatic symptoms, backache, headache, upset stomach, reflux. I mean, the list is extremely long of things that mental states can elicit physically, as you know. So these things are very
thoughts
high.
have very real manifestations in our body.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So I've been kind of refining and purifying it, minimizing the inputs that I take, the information I get, and curating it to make sure, hey, this is more quality stuff. I'm avoiding the caustic stuff, and I'm just happier for it.
That's the proper use of the intellect with regard to emotions, I think. You get to decide where you're going to spend your emotions.
Yes. You can't control every thought, but you can intentionally amplify some and turn down others.
Yeah, that's the way I see it too.
Yeah. So, get closer to a conclusion perhaps here. It's made me more motivated to do things that I'd said, I'll do that in the future. Well, I've got a future.
That's now.
The future is here.
The future is lying on top of you, Dan.
Yes. So apparently that's when, and I always joke that I wouldn't get anything done if it wasn't for the last minute. So here we are. I'm getting stuff done, man. Working on projects I love and seeing. I mean, you've made it really easy, and Mark invited me, and my brother invited me up there. And of course, Mom and Dad are always. I feel lucky to have the family I have. Having people around you in a situation like this is just immeasurably important. Whether you're physically there or whether you're just there in spirit and support and phone call or FaceTime or something like that. I can't imagine the thousands or millions of people who have to go through something like this by themselves.
That, Dan, I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize to whoever's watching this, including ourselves. But that makes me so angry of what happened during COVID is that we shunned people, and I have a lot of resentment at the way the broader medical establishment, the political establishment, what have you, really shut people out during COVID.
Yeah.
It was inhuman, and it degraded our medical care to almost to a frankly insulting degree. And I am frankly resentful at our healthcare system and political system on your behalf, for my behalf, because I feel like we and it failed you because of how we put people off. And yes, you had your healthcare lapse, is true, but I think, from my perspective at least, could have been a lot more responsive in a time that was not COVID era, no lockdowns.
Yeah, there were some. I mean, I agree. I feel like there were definitely overreactions for, whether well-intentioned or for other reasons.
Let's just call them well-intentioned, but
or
not
incompetence or
whatever
the reason is. Public health failed a lot of us in many ways, and which doesn't mean, of course, that public health should go away. It just, we talk about these things because they're improvable, and we always want to improve our house.
We complain with an eye to improve, not to further denigrate.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So now I am just as peaceful and happy and energetic. My hunger and thirst for life is off the charts, man, in a way that I've never felt before. And it's exhilarating.
It's like a conversion experience.
Sure. Yeah. Something changed. Something definitely converted, or several things inside me. Boy, is it wonderful. And of course, the sad part of that is, well, wait a second, do I get this? I'm not even going to call it enlightenment or Zen or anything, but I feel like that's the direction of what I'm feeling is going, is just inner peace. Again, we throw these terms around, but man, it's so profound when you feel it, and it's something you never want to let go. And boy, if we all felt this way that I feel, we wouldn't be at each other's throats. We'd be working together. We'd be having conversations about difficult topics and working towards a common goal. We'd be doing all these things we don't see now. We just see it's red team versus blue team, and they're getting further and further apart. And the assumption, it's this us and them thing. It's good guys and bad guys, and our team is always the good guys. The other team is always the bad guys, and of course they'll tell you the same thing. That stuff would all go away if we could. I think if we were all able to, or even just a small percentage of us, able to get into this healthy headspace where we feel everything we feel: joy, anger, contentment, satisfaction, regret, love, all those things. Feel them completely. Let them work their way through us of their own volition, and then they will leave. So it's letting emotions flow through you, not storing them in the lockbox deep inside, just saying, "Or this grudge, I'm not giving. Well, I'm never going to forgive her for that." No. Man, that's me just drinking poison myself. I heard there's a quote about
expecting that person to die.
Yes.
Drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yes.
That's resentment.
Resentment.
Yep.
Yes.
Resentment, for me, is a portal of all kinds of evil. So exactly the point where I lock down in resentment is the portal through which evil pours into my soul. That's the way I see it. And I cannot afford that. I've tried it. Nothing good has ever happened.
Yeah.
Like if I want to be better, I've got to let that heal, and the only way to let that part heal is to forgive.
Yes.
And not just one time, because as you may have experienced, for me, forgiveness is, yes, right away, maybe I don't feel forgiving, but
Yes.
I make a choice to forgive. And then the next time it pops up, I make another choice to
Yes.
forgive, and another choice, and another choice. And it gets easier over time. It's like cancer. Maybe I never, ever beat it, but I can keep it at bay,
Yes.
And that for me is resentment versus forgiveness.
Yes. And the other thing is forgiveness that is completely independent of what the other person might think.
Completely. Yeah, and it does not mean that I welcome the abuser or the offender.
Yep.
Maybe it does. Maybe it's garden variety.
But it's not automatic.
No, it's not. It's not. And people are like, oh, well, you don't owe that person forgiveness. No, you owe yourself forgiveness towards them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even so much about them.
Yes.
If I have a grudge, that grudge is my problem.
Yes. Yeah. Forgiveness is for the benefit of the forgiver.
Exactly.
And oh my God, I was just about to escape me there. The other thing that this experience has taught me, or I've realized, is that I'm much slower to judge other people.
Isn't it liberating?
Someone cuts you off, or
Yeah.
someone says something rude,
Yeah.
or who knows? We all have these little, what they call them, microaggressions now, whatever that is. But my first instinct was like, oh, I could feel the anger rising through my chest up into my throat.
Feel it tighten up,
Yes.
shoulders tighten up, chest tighten up.
Veins bulging and everything, with that feeling, you can feel it coming on.
Mm.
Now I'm like, I don't know what's going on in their life. They could have just lost their parent,
Mm.
So, sorry.
It's all right.
So everyone has our challenges that no one else, they're secret. Lots of us don't. I mean, the bigger an issue it is for us, the less likely we are to talk about it. Everyone has those. You can't see them by looking at them, but they have them. And I just feel like someone's having a bad day. I feel sorry for them if they are rude to me, or whatever the thing I think I'm offended might be offended by. It just rolls off me, and I actually feel like bad for them, because I know if someone is continually upset or judgmental, they're not happy.
No, they're not.
They're not happy. I'm not happy when I do that. So we should feel compassion for people who treat us badly.
Sometimes I feel anger. Let's be honest.
I'm not saying I don't feel it.
I feel but I don't dwell. I try not to dwell on it.
Yes.
I don't know. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it may be a little flash emotion.
If I need to get a little separation from them, so I don't hate them.
Yes.
All at once and
Yes.
lose control and
Yes.
triggered, because I can be triggered.
Oh yeah, I have been many times.
Despite my high levels of enlightenment, I too can be triggered
Yes.
to irrational levels of anger.
Yes. So all in all, whatever time I have left, it feels like it's this just extravagant spread of buffet, a huge meal that is all my favorite foods that I just get to consume and just extract all the juice from life. It feels like I'm getting more out of life now. And I want that I would like to see if anyone can find out how to get there before they get to my situation. That is the holy grail right there, I think. I think that's all. We want to feel useful to those around us. I think we do. If we make some generalities about humans, we want to feel like we're a part of we're a meaningful part of a group, an integral part of a group that is needed for that group, and we are all pitching in together to make this wonderful experiment of life happen. And we're writing new chapters in our book of history and future every day. And if we can, I don't know, I feel like I'm just rambling, but it just seems like this amazing, massive opportunity to extract so much more satisfaction and meaning from life.
That's the word that keeps popping up in my head as I hear you discussing.
Yes.
It seems like the earth is redolent with meaning for you. It's like it's this aroma that's just saturating your environment now. Everywhere you walk, you see it, you smell it, you hear it, you taste it, you feel it.
Yes.
That's the impression I get as I hear you talk.
I feel like I am a vibrating, living member of the universe. I'm an organ in the universe or something, and I'm fully participating, is what it feels like. And of course, I'm sure we're getting close to the end of our hour here, but
I didn't even check the time.
I'm obviously there's uncertainty for all of us, of course. Perhaps less for me than I used to have. And, maybe it's my 2-minute warning in the football game. They sound the horn, they let you know, okay, we're all going to take a pause here just to let you know we've got a little time left. So do your best work out there, guys.
It's like you realize this is for keeps. And until now, maybe I'm projecting here, until now, it's always felt like it was just respawn or something.
Yes.
But no, this is for keeps.
Yes.
And to me, like real life and death, real life consequences, real life pain, which is kind of my area of pain, like these are the things that, strangely enough, provide meaning. Because if there were no pain, if there were no consequences, if there were no life and death, it seems like the stuff wouldn't really mean that much. You just respawn, big deal. And so now that you're face to face with death, frankly, you realize, hey, this is actually a source of meaning for life.
We wouldn't appreciate the winter if we didn't have a summer that was 115.
How many times have we heard that?
Yes.
Right?
It's
different to
right.
live it. It's different to live it.
Yes. Yes. So, I don't know. That may be all I have to go.
Well, for this time around.
Yeah.
But hopefully, this is only the second of many future conversations.
And this is what 100.
Right.
We'll reference this.
This is what we're doing here. Is frankly, we're why not sort of universalize or broadcast one man's experience, meaningful experience, because I think ultimately, from me personally, in my own life, my experience with other lives and other human beings, is that we're all in search of meaning, and many of us don't quite ever feel like we've found it. And for you to be on the cusp of that, to be peering into it, to be walking through it, to be vibrating in that meaningful environment, is something shockingly few, I think, ever really get to experience.
It's a kind of a gift that I think is there for all of us.
Yep.
Whether it's our end of lifetime or just any point during our life, it's always there.
From my experience, a conversion experience, and that's why I brought that up. That's my only analog to what you're discussing.
Yep.
It's quite a revelation. And I appreciate you sharing that with me.
Yeah, thanks for being here, John.
Yeah.
And I love our talks, and I want to have a lot more.
Let's do more. Let's do more. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man. Good to see you guys. Tune in for more. We'll have more episodes, hopefully for years.
For years.
Bye.